Going down, and it's going to get chilly again tonight. In the morning at the bus stop, look for temps between 42 and 46 and a few clouds. Rain expected tomorrow afternoon. At 6 o'clock, World News Tonight is next.
On World News Tonight, the Pentagon says its air attacks on Afghanistan have done what they can for now. Next, the Special Forces. The spokesman for al-Qaeda says they will attack the U.S. again. They will hijack other planes. Are the U.S. food drops on Afghanistan making matters worse? Some relief agencies say yes. The government says the anthrax which killed a man in Florida was created in a lab. And we'll meet a man who may have saved thousands of lives on September the 11th when he wouldn't let them off the train.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening, everyone. The Pentagon said today that it basically owns the airspace over Afghanistan. There's been virtually no opposition in the air from the Taliban since the air attacks began. But the U.S. does not control the airwaves in the region, and late today, a man described as al-Qaeda's spokesman, we have seen him before with Osama bin Laden, was seen on television openly defying the United States and promising more attacks on the United States itself. His statement was broadcast by Al Jazeera, the Middle East television network, and he said that the men who attacked the U.S. had done well because they took the battle to the United States.
Americans must know that the storm of aircraft will not calm down, God's willing, and that among the youth of the Islamic nation, there are thousands who are as keen to die as Americans are keen to live. Americans must also know that by invading the land of Afghanistan, they have turned a new page of hostility.
A battle for hearts and minds continues. We go now to the Pentagon and ABC's John McWethy for the military campaign. John, there was a significant change today.
On this third day, Peter, the air campaign changed dramatically.
With Afghanistan's modest air defenses now significantly reduced, American fighter jets are patrolling Afghan airspace day and night with little opposition.
I would call the threat pretty light for the most part from where I sit in the cockpit.
Targets worth striking are so scarce, planes are returning with full bomb loads.
We're not running out of targets, Afghanistan is.
The damage thus far, General Richard Myers, new chairman of the Joint Chiefs, showed the first pictures. Pockmarked runways, all but one airfield in the country is now crippled, he claims. An alleged terrorist training camp before being attacked and after being carpet-bombed.
We did well in our initial strikes, damaging or destroying about 85% of the first set of 31 targets. But as in any military operation, we were not perfect.
4 part-time UN employees were killed in a village near Kabul when their building was flattened. One Pentagon explanation, impossible to confirm, was that a Tomahawk cruise missile was knocked off course by anti-aircraft fire. Last night, another Tomahawk missile got stuck in its launch tube, creating a spectacular fuel fire. Brief panic, but no harm, officials claim. Now that there is little to hit from the air, the U.S. focus is shifting to the ground. ABC News has learned that a large contingent of Special Operations Forces are moving toward the region tonight. In small teams, they are expected to infiltrate into Afghanistan quickly.
Right now, the game is to figure out the terrain, get acclimatized to the situation, let bin Laden sweat a little bit about the sorts of things we're going to do, and really work with our local allies on the ground.
Part of the American effort will be all but invisible. The surveillance alone could take months. Officials say it will be expensive, dangerous, and they admit that the teams may never find Osama bin Laden and his inner circle. And Peter, they insist they have no choice but to try.
Thanks, John. John McWethy at the Pentagon. It's very difficult to get a complete picture of what is happening inside Afghanistan. We get what we get from the Pentagon, and inside Afghanistan itself, we get what we get from the sources we can reach. Here's ABC's David Wright.
At the UN office where those Afghan workers were killed, people were digging through the ruins today.
We don't know why they have They have done this. Why they have dropped bomb here?
The men who died were guards at one of the many offices responsible for removing landmines in Afghanistan. The stray bomb drew a rebuke from the United Nations. Other assessments of the bombing came today from the Taliban, which said its leader Mullah Omar and Osama bin Laden are still alive and in good health. Also, the main opposition force, the Northern Alliance, claimed that some 40 Taliban commanders have defected, along with more than 1,000 troops. There is no way to verify either claim. Some residents of Kabul and other cities say they're learning to live with the bombing runs. Others are terrified and furious. We want America to stop this war, said this old man. Many people are rushing to leave the cities. These families fled Jalalabad today, braving a difficult journey through the mountains. But far from the cities, in northern Afghanistan, tens of thousands of Afghans who've lived in refugee camps for years say they're convinced the U.S. attacks will soon mean they'll be able to go home, that the Taliban is in its last days.
You ask anybody, and they will tell you as soon as possible we're going home.
They are counting on these men, the Northern Alliance fighters, who were insisting again today that they will soon be marching on the capital. David Wright, ABC News in northern Afghanistan.
5 seconds.
And now we change to the U.S. In Florida today, the FBI has been scouring through the offices of a company which publishes tabloid newspapers. Hundreds of people who work there are being tested for anthrax after one employee died from the disease and at least one other was exposed. Investigators naturally want to know if there was a link to terrorism. And here with us again tonight is ABC's Brian Ross. Brian?
Peter, federal authorities say the anthrax spores found in Florida did not appear to be natural, but instead of a rather crude kind made in a laboratory, providing potentially important leads to the source. In fact, as the investigation continued in Boca Raton, authorities say the strain of anthrax discovered here almost certainly rules out a lone crackpot and could contain telltale markers leading investigators to a specific country or even laboratory.
It seems very unlikely that a crackpot would have the skills and the dedication and even the finances required for the equipment to produce these materials.
Whatever the source, the doctor for 63-year-old Bob Stevens says he received a huge dose of anthrax spores, adding to the belief he may have received a letter or package at his desk.
The first look at his spinal fluid was overwhelming. There was a large amount of bacteria in the spinal fluid, which is never a good sign. It's a sign of overwhelming infection.
Today, many of Stevens's co-workers expressed outrage at what they said was the slow and inadequate federal government response, waiting 4 days to seal off the office building after anthrax was confirmed in Stevens.
I just don't think that the government was prepared, and I'm upset.
For example, employees said state and federal health officials have yet to address them, cannot tell them the proper dose of antibiotics for their children, and don't even have enough of the drug available for the recommended 60-day treatment period.
Now I've heard there's not enough ciprofloxacin in the county, and we'll have to go elsewhere to obtain the remainder of the supply.
But today, Secretary of Health and Human Services Tommy Thompson said the government is fully prepared and that there's plenty of medicine available.
On every request, we have measured up and have been able to respond to the situation in New York, Washington, D.C., Pennsylvania, and now in Florida.
Federal officials say they remain baffled by the case, which is described as definitely malicious, most likely criminal, but Peter, not on a scale that would suggest terrorism.
Many thanks, Brian. Brian Ross. On that investigation, now we're going to go to the White House because President Bush has been quite angry with certain members of Congress this week. He accuses some of them, or at least one of them, of leaking classified information. Our White House correspondent, Terry Moran, is there. Terry, give us first the sequence of events which led the president to cut off all but the congressional leadership from intelligence briefings.
Peter, last week, some members of Congress received a classified intelligence briefing, portions of which appeared in the Washington Post on Friday. ABC News has learned, however, that it's what wasn't in the Post, classified material in the possession of the paper, that alarmed and infuriated the president. Sources say National Security Advisor Condoleezza Rice was involved in intense negotiations with the newspaper to spike portions of that story, which the paper agreed to on national security grounds. She even had to leave the Oval Office when she was meeting meeting with the president to do this. Now, he got so angry, he personally called the congressional leadership and we're told in no uncertain and very unpresidential language, told them they had a problem. Today in the Rose Garden, after meeting with the German chancellor, he reiterated that message in public.
And not only sharing. I want Congress to hear loud and clear, it is unacceptable behavior to leak classified information when we have troops at risk.
You can see how concerned, to say the least, the president was.
Let me ask you to answer in maybe 2 words, Terry. Is he going to work this out with Congress so briefings will resume?
He will. Tomorrow morning he's meeting with the leadership and they will arrange something to address this issue.
Okay, thanks very much, Terry Moran at the White House. Now to New York. In New York today, where they continue to work naturally at ground zero, Mayor Giuliani ordered a 15% cut in spending for all city agencies except police, the fire department, and the schools. The mayor is trying to avoid a financial crisis. Today, the former banker Felix Rohatyn, who helped save the city from financial ruin in the late 1970s, said the city is in greater economic jeopardy now. Later in the broadcast, we'll take an even closer look at anthrax as a weapon. Does it threaten more than it frightens? We'll meet the man who thought so quickly he may have saved thousands of lives turning back the trains from the trade towers. And when we come back, this business of dropping food on Afghanistan, in the larger picture, does it help or does it hurt?
This is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings, brought to you by Toyota.
Of all the things you love about Toyota cars, trucks, and SUVs, this may be the most interesting. Announcing interest-free financing on all Toyota Corollas, Tundras, and 4Runners for a limited time only.
I'm every man.
And every woman who ever suffered from frequent, persistent heartburn.
If you've treated your heartburn and changed your diet, but it comes back 2 or more days a week, then you may know about the burning pain of acid reflux disease.
But there's something about acid reflux that I didn't know.
Over time, that acid churning up can wear away the lining of your esophagus.
I didn't know.
I didn't know.
I didn't.
But today, there's a purple pill called Nexium. It's from the makers of Prilosec. Just 1 prescription Nexium a day gives many people complete resolution of heartburn symptoms.
That could mean complete heartburn relief.
And importantly, Nexium is also proven to heal erosions in the esophagus caused by acid reflux. Only a doctor can determine if you have this damage. Other serious stomach conditions may still exist. The most common side effects of Nexium and Prilosec are headache, diarrhea, and abdominal pain. So talk to your doctor and call this number for more information and for a free trial certificate for Nexium.
Relieve the heartburn, heal the damage. It's possible with today's purple pill called Nexium.
I'm very proud of my lawn. In the fall, I use Scott's Winterizer. The food enters the root system, stores it over the winter. Then in the spring, perks that grass right up. Scott's Winterizer gives me the last green lawn in the fall and the first green lawn in the spring.
Your eyes need nutrition as well as the rest of your body, so Centrum and Centrum Silver added lutein to help maintain your precious sight. Now your eyes, your toes, and everything in between are covered by Centrum and Centrum Silver. More complete from A to Zinc.
In his briefing today, the Secretary of Defense acknowledged that the food drops into Afghanistan by the U.S. were not an ideal way to deliver food. The food is being dropped from fairly high altitudes in individual packages. We actually managed to get our hands on one of them today. It has quite a lot in it, including raisins and what appear to be a couple of fairly substantial meals, very high in caloric content, peas and pasta and bean salad. It has peanut butter. Couldn't send an American aid package without peanut butter, which is high in nutrition. It has a fair amount of bread. It even has a spoon. And on all of the packages, it has some fairly explicit instructions about how it is to be consumed. Though when put together, it seems rather heavy. The Pentagon says these packages are supposed to flutter to the ground without doing any damage. Now, the question in next door Pakistan today is whether the airdrop in this form is doing much good. ABC's Dan Harris has been talking to aid officials.
They call it a bombs and bread mission. While attacking the Taliban and al-Qaeda,
U.S. officials have reminded the public as often as possible that they're also attacking hunger. 37,000 individual food rations dropped every night. Today, some humanitarian aid workers were saying this effort is little more than propaganda.
The main concern that we would have with airdrops is that the amounts of food delivered so far are insufficient compared to the needs.
And some say the U.S. is actually doing more harm than good. The bombing raids have some truck drivers too scared to carry food into the country. Many of the humanitarian workers who stayed behind in Afghanistan are now fleeing for the same reason. The attacks have significantly hampered a large humanitarian effort, and the U.S. food drops simply can't compensate for that. Also, Alex Renton of Oxfam International says while his group appreciates the U.S. food, there's a real danger of dropping packets in a nation riddled with landmines.
Airdrop is seen as a last resort. It's highly expensive, it doesn't target the needy, and it can create more problems than it solves.
The Secretary of Defense today partially conceded the point.
Anyone looking at it understands that delivering from the air is not your first choice.
Rumsfeld says the goal is to create a safer situation on the ground. That way, the U.S. can use the $320 million it recently pledged toward Afghanistan to deliver food via trucks. If the fighting continues, however, all that aid could be sitting on the sidelines as winter sets in. Dan Harris, ABC News, Islamabad.
Now, some other news today. In the national briefing, the Supreme Court has let stand a number of important lower court rulings that Microsoft can be punished for violating antitrust laws, even though the judge in the case spoke unfavorably about the company, that Louisiana can prevent its cities from suing gun manufacturers, and that a Texas policeman cannot sue his employer for firing him because he wore a cross on his uniform. 2 Americans and a German won the Nobel Prize in Physics today. They're the Americans, Eric Cornell and Carl Wyman of Colorado. The 3 of them found a way to freeze matter into a new state, which may help make microscopic computers and revolutionary aircraft guidance systems. When we come back, we will take a closer look at anthrax as a weapon, the efforts by doctors and the government to blunt a threat.
It was my grandson's birthday. He just turned 3. We're going to move him out of his crib and buy him a big boy bed. I was on chemo then, and I was exhausted. I said to the doctor, I need help. I'm on a mission.
If you're a chemotherapy patient and feel tired and weak, you may be anemic. Ask your doctor about Procrit. Procrit is a natural way to regain red blood cells lost during chemotherapy. And more red blood cells can mean more strength.
Oh, this is a great one. This is a good one.
Procrit is proven and safe. In studies, only diarrhea and edema occurred more often with Procrit than placebo. Procrit is for patients with non-myeloid cancers.
How do you like it up here now?
Good. Call now and learn how Procrit can help you get back the strength you need.
See? What'd I tell you?
Your strength for living.
He takes a lot of energy, but I never get tired of him.
Be adventurous. Be plugged in. Be involved. Be powerful. Be yourself. Because it's your choice, your voice, and your attitude. Today's AARP.
Heartburn? Give me a cold one.
Introducing Tums Cool Relief with unique Friva crystals. It gives you an immediate cooling, soothing sensation in your mouth and throat. You can feel the chill while it knocks out heartburn fast.
I could really use a cold one.
New Tums Cool Relief with calcium. Feel the difference.
Johnson, I'd like to see some ideas on saving the company money. I'll be back first thing in the morning.
Think.
That's the dumbest!
Drink.
Well, Johnson, Staples, that'll save us a lot of money. You are a genius.
Get extra savings for your business all this month at Staples.
We're going to take a closer look at anthrax again tonight. There is concern in the country, in some places more than others, about anthrax as a weapon. Anthrax is a potentially fatal infection caused by bacteria. You cannot catch it from someone else. It is most dangerous when it is inhaled. The first symptoms resemble those of a cold, but eventually the infection can shut down the lungs and cause death. In the entire 20th century in the United States, there were only 18 reported cases of inhaled anthrax. Here's ABC's Ned Potter.
If there were people who wanted to kill a lot of victims in Florida, they failed. But if they wanted to scare people, they did very well. Anthrax bacteria are common in livestock and are tested in many labs. Turning anthrax into a weapon, on the other hand, is no simple matter.
The delivery aspect of it is much more difficult, requires a lot more intensive knowledge than it does to simply grow the organism.
Specifically, one has to know how to take anthrax cells like these and dry them into particles called spores of a very specific size. If the particles are too large, they won't float in the air where people would inhale them. If they're too small, they won't lodge in people's lungs. The bottom line is that it would be very difficult to infect large numbers of people.
The chances, I believe, of being in the wrong place at the wrong time so that you as an individual is exposed is really very, very remote.
But what worries health officials is that a patient could walk into a clinic and days could pass before anyone realized he was an anthrax victim. Anthrax can be treated with common antibiotics, but only if it is caught early.
Hours make an enormous amount of difference. Certainly a day does.
That's why in Washington, the subway system has a secret detecting system to check for biological agents. And in New Mexico, doctors are trying a new internet system for reporting unusual cases. Doctors answer simple questions on a computer screen, and the state health department is flagged instantly if the symptoms suggest anthrax. So I'm the doctor at the clinic, and I entered those having no idea what I really have on my hands.
And right now, that public health official is calling you on the telephone even before that patient has left your office.
Officials say the need for such technologies could not be greater, and perhaps the Florida case will be a wake-up call. Ned Potter, ABC News, New York.
There's a lot of information in the public domain right now about anthrax and the threat that it poses, and quite frankly, we find that not all of it is accurate. But abcnews.com is a good place to go to learn more about anthrax in many respects. When we continue this evening, our final item, the trains were heading into the trade towers, and there was only seconds to stop them.
How can you provide for the future of the people who depend on you? With the power of Pacific Life. For over 130 years, Pacific Life has improved the lives of millions with investments, annuities, and insurance. Because careful planning today can help them reach their dreams tomorrow. Discover the power of Pacific Life.
Now, the same Caltrate that helps fight bone loss may help your colon too. In a recent study, Caltrate helped reduce the risk of recurrence of colon polyps, a risk factor for colon cancer. The same Caltrate you take for your bones, now for colon health too.
Can you reach?
When my guys want cookies,
There's something better.
Pillsbury ready-to-bake cookies couldn't be easier. Just place them and bake them. So I have more time just to hang out with my guys.
Pillsbury, my heart to yours.
Broyhill is having their first national sale. Broyhill savings for every room in the house. Living rooms, bedrooms, dining rooms. It's a great sale. Hurry in, something this good won't last long. What's better than Broyhill? Broyhill on sale.
29, 30.
Now at Red Lobster, you can get 30 mouth-watering shrimp for just $9.99. Red Lobster, go overboard.
Okay, I'm here.
Good. I just wanted to make sure that the new computers are ready to ship.
They're ready.
And they're loaded with the latest operating system?
They're loaded.
Shh. And your store guys are ready to teach people all the stuff they can do?
They're all set.
You know, Ted, you're lucky to have a cow for a best friend. Dogs are so overrated.
Dogs love home cooking, or new Pedigree Little Champions. Gently prepared, then sealed in our revolutionary flavor lock pouch. For the home-cooked taste dogs love.
Yeah. What are you doing in there? I'll be right there.
I'm Paul Lindman. Coming up next on KT News, anthrax. Local doctors say it's hard to detect before it kills. A change in security can change the way you drive into Portland's airport. We take a look back on Oregon's show of love and support for New York. And a 21-year-old mystery ends on Mount Adams next on KT News.
How could a terrorist slip into the U.S. on a student visa? Should new limits be put on immigration? And will it help keep America safe? Watch World News Tonight tomorrow.
Finally this evening, as the calendar tells us, it has been 4 weeks since the attacks on New York and Washington. And we all know that what happened on that day will go into the history books. Each individual story, a meaningful part of the narrative fabric that makes history. Tonight, a man who is credited with saving thousands of lives. Here's ABC's Deborah Amos.
Richie Moran still dreams about what happened at the World Trade Center.
I dream about that morning and watching that on TV as the buildings collapsed.
And dreams about what he did that day, giving life-saving instructions that saved so many lives.
How many people do you think were saved by your actions?
We have about 1,000 people on a train. There could have been anywhere from 2, 3, 4, 5 trains down there.
So that's 5,000 people? Almost the amount of people who died in the attack?
In the attack, yeah.
Moran coordinates trains that go into New York. On September 11th, 2 minutes after the first plane crashed, he heard reports of an explosion. He also knew trains were still headed to the World Trade Center.
Well, I had told one crew not to open it. We were just going to go right through.
He ordered another conductor to get passengers back in the train.
Did those men know what was going on above ground?
They had no idea.
Only that the passengers should not go upstairs to the World Trade Center. By 8:52, 11 minutes before the second plane hit, train service was halted.
By that time, every passenger was safe.
All our passengers were, right, without exception, other than the ones that had gone down there earlier in the morning and were already at work, which are our passengers.
You feel like a hero?
Yeah. Oh, no, not at all. The heroes are dead, I guess.
Even as he watched his passengers ride to safety, he could also see the rescue workers running into the building. 13 officers assigned to those trains were killed. There is a shrine to their bravery close to the trainmaster's office. Deborah Amos, ABC News, New York.
That is our report on World News Tonight. Tomorrow on the broadcast, a whole new notion of restricting immigration to America. We'll look at it very closely. I'm Peter Jennings. Hope you'll join us tomorrow. Good night.
I'm a dancer.
These lawyers know their clients well.
I think I've seen you dance.
Maybe a little too well.
Is this your father? Don't point your finger at me.
Shut up, Daddy.
Did he flip me off?
An all-new Philly. Tonight at 10, 9 Central on ABC. Viewer discretion.
Yep.
You better get some for us all.
Give me my soup.
Campbell Select ready to serve. Good.
The newest children's movies come to Walmart's home entertainment department.
In 1937, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs defined animation. Now in 2001, it's redefining DVD.
My powers will allow you to experience Snow White in different ways.
The one that started it all is changing it all. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs on Disney DVD Tuesday, October 9th for a limited time.
For kids' videos at everyday low prices, come to Walmart.